right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're tracking the journey, the literally invisible journey of an ultrasonic pulse. We're going to see exactly how super simple sound waves can map our physical world, basically turning an invisible echo into really precise, actionable data. It's like magic, but it's science.
Here's a quick look at our roadmap. We've got 1. The magic of echolocation. 2. Anatomy and Arduino setup. 3. The physics of sound. 4. Real-world industrial applications. 5. Troubleshooting and blind spots. And finally, 6. Filtering noise with math.
So, starting off with Section 1, the magic of echolocation. Now, we've got to begin with a biological concept that actually makes all this possible, echolocation. If you think about a bat, or even Daredevil, right? These sensors do the exact same thing. They rely on emitting high-frequency sound waves. We're talking pulses operating right around 40 kilohertz. That is way, way beyond what human ears can pick up. Then, they just listen for the echoes to figure out exactly how far away something is. And that brings us to the star of the show, the HC-SR04 Ultrasonic Sensor. When you look at the front of this thing, you instantly see what look like these big, goofy bat eyes. But those are actually the transducers. One is dedicated 100% to blasting out that ultrasonic pulse, and the other is built specifically just to catch the returning echo. You flip it around, and you've got this super compact circuitry running the whole operation with just 4 little pins.
Moving right along to Section 2, Anatomy and Arduino setup.
Okay, so how is this pulse actually born? Well, it's a really specific sequence. First, your microcontroller, like an Arduino, shoots a tiny 10 microsecond electrical jolt, a high signal right to the sensor's trigger pin. Think of that like the starting pistol. Bam! The transmitting transducer then fires out a very specific burst of 8 short sound pulses at that 40 kilohertz frequency. Then, the echo pin goes high, an internal timer starts ticking, and it just waits. It waits for that specific pattern of 8 pulses to bounce off something and come back.
If we could see this invisible acoustic journey over time, it looks something like this. First, you get that massive burst of the initial pulse. Right after, there's a period of attenuation. Basically, the transducer physically has to stop vibrating. It has to stop ringing from its own shout. Then, a brief moment of silence while the wave travels out and back, until finally, that smaller, returning echo is successfully caught by the receiver.
All right, Section 3, the physics of sound.
Once that pulse leaves the sensor, it is traveling at the speed of sound. At a standard room temperature, that speed is roughly 343 meters per second. Fast, right? Let's fire up the DeLorean and travel back to high school physics for a second. We know the speed of sound, and our sensor's echo pin just told us exactly how much time it took for the wave to return. So, distance equals speed multiplied by time. Simple enough. But wait, here's the catch. We have to remember to divide that total by 2. Why? Because the time we just recorded was for a round trip. The sound went all the way out, hit the object, and traveled all the way back. Dividing by 2 gives us the actual one-way distance. But here is where it gets tricky. Our pulse is totally at the mercy of its environment. Heat is a form of kinetic energy, right? So at 0 degrees Celsius, sound travels at 331 meters per second. But if you bump that temperature up to 40 degrees, those air molecules are vibrating with way more energy, and they carry our sound wave much faster at 358 meters per second. So the physical environment literally changes the sensor's math.
Let's dive into Section 4, Real-World Industrial Applications.
You know, because sound waves simply do not care about the color or the transparency or the glare of an object, these sensors are absolute problem solvers in the industrial world. They're used all over the place to measure liquid levels in massive vats without ever having to touch dangerous chemicals. They can spot perfectly clear glass bottles on an assembly line, something that would totally confuse a regular optical sensor. And they work flawlessly in factories completely choked with thick dust and oil mist. It's really incredible.
Section 5, Troubleshooting and Blind Spots. So what happens when things go wrong? Why do we sometimes get really erratic or false readings? Well, things like heavy environmental noise, a ton of moisture, wild temperature swings, or just weird physical barriers can seriously mess with our echo. When that interference happens, the sensor gives us jumpy measurements, delayed responses, or just completely false alarms. One of the biggest physical limitations you'll run into is something called the deadband. If an object is right up against the sensor, we're talking usually under 2 centimeters, the sensor is functionally blind. Remember that attenuation time we talked about a minute ago? If the object is too close, the echo bounces back while the transducer is still ringing from sending out the first pulse. The echo just gets completely lost in that noise. It creates this unusable dead zone directly in front of the sensor. And on top of that, the physical shape of your target completely dictates if your echo even survives. A flat surface, like a wall, acts as a perfect acoustic mirror. It bounces that sound wave straight back to the receiver. But round objects, like a pipe or a cylindrical bar, they scatter our sound waves in a million different directions, which severely reduces the amount of acoustic energy that actually makes it back home. When you map this out visually, the difference is honestly striking. You get this massive, wide detection zone, this big lobe, for a standard flat plate. But for a round bar, the response curve shrinks drastically into a much narrower, tighter shape. The roundness of the object just destroys the area where the sensor can reliably see it. Finally, Section 6, filtering noise with math. So in highly dynamic, real-world applications, say your sensor is strapped to a fast-moving drone or a vehicle, that raw measurement data is gonna be messy. It just is. To make sure our control systems don't completely fail because of that chaotic environment, we can actually use mathematical algorithms built right into the microcontroller to act as the ultimate filter and clean that data up. And this brings us to the discrete common filter. Instead of just blindly trusting raw data, this algorithm runs a continuous super smart loop. It predicts the sensor's state and then immediately corrects itself based on the new incoming measurements. By mathematically weighing its own predictions against all that chaotic measurement noise, it smooths out erratic jumps and gives us an incredibly stable, reliable reading. The biggest takeaway here: software has the power to overcome hardware limitations. You don't always need to go out and buy some wildly expensive high-end sensor to get professional results. By combining a literal $2 piece of hardware with brilliant adaptive math, you unlock incredibly robust performance that can totally handle the unpredictability of the physical world. So we've tracked our ultrasonic pulse from a tiny electrical jolt on a breadboard, watched it navigate the thermal physics of the air, bounce off physical targets, and ultimately get refined by some pretty advanced math. Understanding this entire journey gives you the power to essentially sense the invisible. The only question left is, if a $2 component and a smart algorithm can see the invisible, what unknown worlds are you going to build and map next? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep building.